Welcome everybody and welcome back to another episode of Digital Transformation Bytes, presented by myself, Brad Flux, CRO at Interware. And I suppose the first thing to say before anything else is Happy New Year. This is the first episode of 2024. And I'm very pleased to say I've been joined by Alex Deighton, CEO of SimplyVideo. Say hello, Alex.
Yeah, hi everyone, and to echo your thoughts, Bradley, Happy New Year to all that are listening.
Excellent. So this podcast today, we're going to talk around remote expert. We're going to talk around XR technology and those sorts of things. So, like I said to everyone, Alex is CEO of SimplyVideo. Alex, could you, I suppose, share a bit about your background as well, and I suppose what SimplyVideo do?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Bradley, and it's a story I'm pleased to share. But myself personally, I'm sort of 20 years in telecoms, and I was always looking at video and video communications way back in 2016, and the fact it would work in the browser. And in the end, I ended up buying a video company in 2019, and just as we were coming to market with a product, and the idea was to take branded video conferencing to UK SME, COVID struck. And as harsh as that was for everyone, clearly it was a catalyst for the whole world to change to video comms. Right then and there, like within 2 weeks, the market disappeared in a cloud of Zoom dust, and then closely followed by Microsoft Teams. So we then took the product that we had and we made the pivot really into, what is defined as XR, extended reality, in supporting devices, head-mounted devices in effect, with video communication. And that's really where we found the product market fit with our sort of key skill sets. But that was the journey, and now we're fully engaged in this immersive world. But part of what we're trying to do is engage with those frontline workers, but make sure that our product enables them to engage with the rest of the organization or external organizations. So that's a bit of a summary of the journey, and pleased to be in the space because it's really exciting.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's interesting. The COVID issue really did change the way people worked massively, and it was, like you said, overnight, over a couple of months, the whole world knew what Microsoft Teams was, Zoom, and lots of other products, and connected working didn't stop, especially frontline workers and those sorts of things. So. It was a very, very interesting time for the kind of digital workflows that we do at Interware, and obviously the remote expert style solutions and video solutions you do at SimplyVideo. One question I ask everyone, just to kind of start off and before we get deep into connected workers, obviously this is called Digital Transformation Bytes. And what I've found with digital transformation, Alex, is a lot of people see digital transformation in various different ways. What does digital transformation mean to you?
Yeah, I think it starts and stops with the adoption of technology to replace older ways of working, right? And if we simplified it at that, is you're only going to really adopt something if it's going to make your life easier and better, right? And sometimes that's nice and easy, like a mobile phone and an application that you can work and you do your banking on it now. And sometimes that journey is much harder, right? But the end results should deliver a better experience for the user and the business. And there's various different notches, like I say, on the digital transformation journey, but it's about trying to use technology to make your life easier and better. It's fundamentally how I see it.
Yeah, I think it is. A lot of people say the same. It's just funny, digital transformation is such a wide phrase. Like you said, it's, the HSBC convincing you to use their app instead of going into the branch is digital transformation. But obviously, when we talk about connected working, and we talk about frontline workers, and we talk about large organizations with teams in remote areas or across a land space, whether that's a continent, whether that's the world, it is a tougher journey. And when you said it at the beginning, you said about frontline workers and those things. Why do you think it's so crucial? For organizations these days and businesses, especially in the industrial area, to focus on connecting frontline workers in some sort of digital transformation journey. Why is that so crucial?
Yeah, I think it's a bit like understanding if you've got the army in a base in camp, and then you've got your guys out in the field, right? And if the two are totally disconnected, there's just not the information flow, because the cold face is the cold face, right? And that's where I guess transactions are taking place from a physical perspective or a maintenance perspective. And if that information could be improved or delayed, either end of that scale, then clearly it can lead to a better outcome for all, a speedy response. And that could save lives, it could save money, it drives efficiency. And fundamentally, it's only really with the advent of connectivity, which is now existing, and devices that can work over that connectivity, that means that we can connect those workers in a real-time environment, right, or near as real-time environment, which means the whole workforce becomes one and totally connected, right, and the information flow is connected between the different entities that people can make decisions around.
Yeah, and I suppose the SimplyVideo offering plays a massive part in that. You're talking about that communication from people on the front line or the cold face, out doing whatever project it is. How SimplyVideo helping connect those two bits, and then coming back to whatever central resource, central office, home base, whatever it is. How is SimplyVideo playing a big part in that?
So when COVID came about and the traditional video conferencing market in effect was swallowed by or taken up by Zoom and Teams, then what we made a focus on was connecting these devices that potentially wouldn't work in those environments or in those domains. And therefore SimplyVideo, and by the nature of the technology, allows us to connect a device with a frontline worker in a low bandwidth environment and still deliver a decent image quality with corresponding audio. And that's where I said at the start of the show that we found the product market fit, because there's lots of great hardware coming to market, but it needs to be used in remote environments which are potentially low bandwidth. Yeah. Those devices have a certain battery life, and we go very easy on the battery life, and therefore on the connectivity and the quality of transmission is where SimplyVideo comes into its own, really, by the technology, the underlying technology that we use. So we're thinking great, but sometimes expensive hardware in a remote location, and we can be that conduit to bring it back and the images to base.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because obviously you and I have worked together, and we've worked with customers around the world who have taken on digital workflows and then remote expert solutions together to really connect that information through. We've obviously I've talked about digital workflows a lot on Digital Transformation Bytes, so I won't go over that kind of ground, but where do you see that specific use case? What use cases are customers using it for in your experience? Obviously I've seen it where, people are connecting, someone like a junior engineer with a senior engineer. They're out in the field doing a job. Instead of having to pick someone up and fly them out to help the junior engineer, which may have happened 10 years ago, there's that great use case with something like SimplyVideo, where that junior engineer can dial into that senior engineer who could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't even need to be in the same continent, could be on the other side of the world, and still support them, still talk through, take advantage of the low bandwidth, which is something I've seen, still maintaining the video quality and things like that, which, some of maybe the more common video services like Teams and that may struggle in those environments. And I've seen it being used on technology like our technology. So what are you seeing as the specific use cases that are really delivering value to individual customers?
I'm not sure, Bradley. I think I could put you ahead of our sales team with that introduction to why. I tell you, one of the key things that you didn't cover there, where we see that we can have a lot of impact, and this is talking about specifically SimplyVideo with the remote eyes on. And it might not even be in the remote location, but it's where there's a use case where there's lots of changeable environment. And what I mean by that is if you've got a junior engineer and they're trained up, they might need, depending how good they are, they might need help from an expert once a week, once a day, right? Could be once a month if they're really good. But if you get a changeable environment where there's a factor of change every day, then the remote expert or see what I see can become compelling. Yeah, so we have some of our biggest customers and biggest use cases in the medical environment, yeah, where in effect they're seeing a new piece of data, a new patient coming in to see them every day, and that particular patient represents something completely different to the one before. Yeah, and therefore, let's say the practitioner or the nurse or the doctor can really dial in a variety of different colleagues subject to what's in front of them. But if they're seeing, 10 patients a day and all the instances are different, yeah, then it makes it really compelling to have that ability to reach other people if they don't have the knowledge. Yeah, so I would say that's compelling when there's change abundant in an organization or, whatever the use case is, industry.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting one, and I suppose that's probably one I didn't think of. I was very much focused on that consistency of rhythm, and then things like the skills gaps and that. But I've seen the work that obviously as we've worked together, you've done around the healthcare, and that is a great example of the same but different every time, because they are seeing people. But there is no consistency in people's health. There's no consistency in the conditions people have. So to have that ability to reach out to people that can solve, it must reduce waiting time, downtime. I suppose downtime's a better one. You've got to be careful using waiting time with healthcare, but downtime, it reduces downtime in between the whole process. It must be, because it must create that instant access, that instant information, that instant communication to help solve those problems, where in the past, I'd assume, is an assumption, that if they can't do that, they have to wait to be able to get hold of that information, which could delay the whole process 10%, 20%, 100%, 200%.
Yeah, and agreed. Look, another customer we've taken on recently, albeit it's still in the medical sector, but the use case is slightly different. But they are delivering equipment to end user customers. Yeah, and those end user customers have obviously got a training requirement because the equipment that is being delivered is quite complicated. Yeah, and the ability not to have to travel, or the person to have that initial question, and it's not handled very well by a phone call. And even to the point there that they can absorb really the cost of sending out the device with the equipment. Yeah, and they can indeed tutor the end user who wants to do learning to put the headset on, hit a couple of buttons, and then have a two-way conversation. Yeah, we had one piece of feedback recently, and the microphone was picking up the instructions from the remote expert on the device, which was then enabling the user. They didn't have to say anything. It was just happening in front of them for the right view. So again, that's process of change, because once that customer has been educated, then of course they're happy, right? But of course the sales team have sold the next device to the next customer, and they can repeat the process. Yeah, so again, it's this element of change and the requirement to learn immediately without travel. Yeah, that then starts to tick the boxes where businesses that will engage in buying the devices or understanding that need, can get the ROI. Now, sometimes that can be pertinent to an individual. This particular individual who inquired to us, was probably spending five days out of every 7 traveling, right? So missing his family and so on and so forth. He's looking at going, how do I find a better way of doing this, and what technology is out there to help me? And therein lies, I guess, the education, because when they hit our front door, they were looking at an X device when they really needed a Y device for their use case. So it's that process of education. But again, back to answering your question, it's that process of change which then, for me, dictates that technology and that digital transformation using the equipment, what we do, part of what you do, can really help an organization.
And that's it, isn't it? Whether it's to see your family or what have you, time is one of the big ones in our industry. And I guess you see it, I see it as well, dealing with various size organizations across the world. The amount of time digital transformation used in an industrial environment, and used in the correct way, which comes with the right product, the right education, as you say. I think those two parts are very important. It's never plug and play. And let's be honest, you've got to understand an organization, you've got to understand its challenges, and you've got to understand what it wants to achieve. But that is one of the big ones, one of the biggest case studies I see, and one of the biggest ROIs I see. And time leads to money and various other things, but days, hours, weeks, months, and years, you go through when you implement these sorts of digital processes, whether it's workflows, like you said, whether it's a remote expert solution and other solutions as well, which really automate the way people can work, time is massive, and that's a really good point. But the other thing, you mentioned devices in that there as well, which is interesting, because how does XR technology, I suppose, enhance both the experience for a frontline worker and that person's day-to-day operations?
Yeah, just to pick up on one point you said there, which I think is also critical, is, let's say there's an adoption curve, right? And depending on the level of technical skill set, that is, a 2 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. But when there's a greater goal at the end of it, that someone will, even if they're not technically skilled, will go through the adoption process of using a new device and understanding new software. If the greater goal at the end of that means they can understand that machine more quickly, or that use case or whatever piece of information they're lacking, then they can get on with their job faster and makes their life easier, right? And for me, this is a big thing. It's all about making your life easier, right? For that individual user, rather than being told by the management that you've got to wear this particular device and do this thing, if it makes the end user's life easier, then why would they not do it? Yeah. And therefore, in terms of the device adoption and what they can do for those end users, as long as they're comfortable with the type of device that they're wearing, and it could be monocular, which is one camera, or could be binocular, a pair of glasses, it's finding that usability for the end user that then enhances their job experience, right? Because otherwise you can end up with failed adoption. Well, the ROI says this should be really good, and all the business case makes sense. But if the end users aren't prepared to pick it up because it looks funny, we've had that on building sites, what you're wearing that for, and being ridiculed by the mates. So somewhere in lies the balance, but the balance has to be that the end users want to wear the device, and it's not incumbent to what they're doing, or they don't feel funny, or they don't feel threatened, or they don't feel stupid, so on and so forth, right? So it's trying to handhold, but make sure for the right use case, you're finding the right XR device with the level of technical ability to enhance performance and make someone's life easier.
Yeah, and I think that goes for, I think, a lot of what happens in our industry. Return on investment, business case, very, very important. IT, architecture, data where the data transit's going to go. All those things are very, very important. But I find the key pillar out of the three is always adoption, and adoption comes from early, I suppose, engagement with the end user, I think, is key. And I think that's where it gets critiqued as well. And I think what I find with the sort of work that we do at Interware, where it's more digital workflows, so it's the processes and that sort of thing, if you engage with them and get their input and get their feedback, and then help to adapt it to match their, like you said, their challenges, their I suppose, hesitancy. I think that's a good word to use, especially if people think they look a bit silly of it on, which it's different. It is different when you're wearing some of these XR devices, and it is a little bit different to walking around with a clipboard or a phone or a tablet. So is that one of the biggest things you see as well, is to get the right adoption? It's those end users, really working with those end users from as early as possible, to ensure that the product will go out and adopt?
Yeah, and look, we've seen it to the point of the most successful customers we have are where the people who are buying the technology and taking it into their business is a true believer, right? Because they get it, they get the benefit, and therefore they can carry that enthusiasm of what it can achieve to their end users. Yeah, it's almost like train the trainer, right? Where we're the trainer, but training the individual in that business, right, to help. Because as much as we can, right, and this is the point, isn't it? If it goes into higher management and middle management don't believe, high management are bought into the use case, middle management, can throw the devices at the end users, and they put them on and go, well, don't like them. I didn't get the benefit. But there's no appetite to train and change, right? So it comes down to those training skills, but really the end user who's adopting their technology being able to do it within their business, right? Because we're selling into a business, you're always at one step removed. So you need that internal sponsorship.
No, I agree. And I suppose in that scenario, Alex, what are the challenges? I suppose what are the key challenges that those frontline workers face in adopting new technology, whether it's digital transformation? What are the challenges that you guys see? And I suppose to kind of loop the question is how are you overcoming those challenges to, whether it is middle management or, the frontline worker, how are you overcoming the challenges? And, if someone comes back to you and like you said, it didn't quite work, I didn't quite like that, I didn't quite this, how do you work with them to help them see the benefits and overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think it starts and stops with the training that we try to give both the principal person in the organization who's ultimately going to be responsible, making them as comfortable as possible, understanding where their skill set is and how we improve that if we need to before they take it out to the end users. Yeah, and with those end users, we try and give as much, again, reason to the why. Yeah, if they've been I guess piloted into trying to use these devices. Yeah, because again, there's two thoughts, isn't there? If you just get told to do something but you don't understand the science behind it, then well, why am I doing it, right? If we can give them the science and the education and where it should lead to, and also explain that there could be some hard yards, right? That there could be some hard yards that they're going to have to go through, but once they get through those, then I guess riding a bike, going surfing, you don't just get on and be a champion surfer, right? Do you? And it's that true. Type of adoption where you've got to tell them there might be some hard yards, right? But it's just trying to keep everyone on side, and then telling them that the results that it can bring back, A, for their own performance, and B, to the business, should all make sense, right? And that we're at the start of the journey. Interestingly, I was had a pal of mine up for Christmas, right? And he'd then gone home, and I was telling him about what we do. And he'd been watching the latest Mission Impossible film, right? And about 30 minutes in, a pair of smart glasses, AR related, and he texted me and said, thanks for coming up for Christmas. I was watching Mission Impossible, and now I get it, right? And the point I'm making is that if you can show them the device might be what it is now, right? But what it'll be in 2 or 3 years' time could be where Tom Cruise is running around in a really cool pair of sunglasses and getting all this information. Yeah, so not saying that they can be Tom Cruise, right? But it's giving them that glimpse of the future as well that helps.
Yeah, so what we can expect is Ethan Hawke in Mission Impossible running around with SimplyVideo, Workflow Plus, and a decent AR device in a couple of years' time. I like that. That'd be a good idea. That'd be a good idea.
Hang on, Brad. If Ethan Hawke replaces Tom Cruise, then we might get that, right?
Isn't that his name in the show?
Oh yeah, no, sorry. So I was thinking of Ethan.
Yeah. No, his name is
the other actor.
Ethan Hawke.
Apologies.
I usually go. I'll being British. Obviously, I go to James Bond first, but I'm sure it is Ethan Hawke. I could be wrong though. I've been wrong before, but no, that would be good. That would be good. But it's interesting. You mentioned AR, which obviously we've been talking about XR, which is that thing. But AR, whether it's augmented reality or assisted reality, as some of the manufacturers like to describe those style of devices. Have you got any good examples for us where I suppose maybe SimplyVideo and AR have significantly improved efficiency in organizations?
Yeah, look, I think it's not specific to AR, right? But specific to the adoption of XR fundamentally can save time, travel, and therefore cost. Yeah. So where we've seen successful adoption, it can be quite hard to quantify unless you absolutely monitor the stats. We did it with one customer in the UK, and it was something that they wanted to take and push internally. And this is often the journey, right? That people have to go through the adoption. They might have to go through that pain barrier that I've spoken about in terms of different skill sets and understanding new equipment. But this one particular business really saw the value in it. And I guess the team who were sponsoring it grabbed that information. And therefore, they were able to take it back as a study and deliver X percentage efficiency was being delivered by the adoption of the technology. And that's probably also key if your listeners are thinking, right, if they're going to make the jump, write the check, try and put something in place that allows them to understand the results that they're having, because then they can get sponsorship from further up the tree or other stakeholders or, give them those results. And that's really the key. So all of the above that deliver the efficiency and different use cases, and people have different requirements, but it's been able to measure whatever they are and then prove the success back to the business and the stakeholders, to scale it out.
Yeah, that is a massive part of it. Like I said, once that adoption's in place with the end users and people are using it efficient, I think the time and the money saved is massive. Like, from the workflow side of things, we've seen 250, 300% improvements in productivity, downtime's reduced massively. And, you were given a great example earlier of downtime when we were talking about the healthcare and those sorts of things. So, that is where those businesses really, really, and I think those early adopters, I think to word it better, have seen those benefits. But what I found of a lot of these customers is those benefits are growing, because they're not just accepting that, then they're almost using that kind of lean style approach to things, which is then they go back and review it again, evolve it further, evolve their processes further, evolve it into new use cases, new areas of the business, and then continue to see productivity gains, reduction in downtime, reduction in mistakes, less travel, massively covering the skills gap as well. And I think that's another great area SimplyVideo helps out as well when they're joining. I know we've talked about joining senior engineers or junior engineers and those sorts of things, but we've talked about it in a productivity basis, but the skills gap part of it as well must be huge, because naturally, with an AR device, and for anyone who, I suppose, hasn't listened to maybe our other shows or doesn't know what an assisted reality device is, it gives you the ability to see the screen and use the screen in your peripheral vision as you're doing the task. So it's not like VR where it completely immerses you. You're only, I think, even semi-immersed is probably over-egging it. What that gives you the ability to do is call on those things as you're doing whatever your task is. So that, from an educational point of view, is massive, because, from the workflow side of things, Alex, we see it quite often where people build the educational workflows. But where we're also seeing it, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, when we talk about Remote Expert, we talk about SimplyVideo, is to then have those people doing that training, but 10 juniors or 10 trainees being able to report into one senior member of staff or one educator. But that one educator sat at their desktop can support them all different times, support them for their information as well. So do you see SimplyVideo as well contributing to that skills gap issue that these businesses are seeing? That older generation are retiring, that younger generation are coming through. Is that a big part of your I suppose your field?
Yeah. 100%, right? It's that star effect, isn't it, of that one knowledge base? Yeah, it can support a variety of users depending on how often they would get calls. But I'll share this with you because it was a conversation I was having with someone else, and just a slightly different use case, but it was again using XR, it was using visibility. And we spoke a lot about, remote expert, someone's running into a problem and what do they do in eyes on. But this was really in front of the curve, and the example they were giving was an expensive production line equipment, right? It could be number of pieces of equipment or complete replacement. And really the use case was build a digital twin of that information or those machines. And therefore, when they're being taken out of service and that production line goes down, right, immediately the staff who are going to be operating the new machinery can be being trained on the digital twin, right? Let's say that's in virtual reality, the fully immersive, with a variety of programs. But of course, the moment the new equipment arrives, they should be up and running. Yeah, but then you take a different type of device, like an assisted reality, which you were just explaining what it is. And therefore, the SimplyVideo, that one underlying technician either could be in company, it could be from the actual supplier, but both people could be on the same call. Yeah, and the new engineers with the new equipment, we could also stream that call via whatever medium. So you could probably have 100 people learning about that new machine. So all of a sudden, you don't have to repeat the process, and you've used XR and the constituent different parts of devices and different elements of technology to really speed up learning, less the downtime, back to money, cost efficiency. So look, that's that aging workforce to younger people. One of the things we spoke about before was adoption, right? So my middle son is trainee electrician, right? He's often coming home with stories of being on a roof doing solar and getting stuck and coming down and phoning a friend and, whatever else. I'm like, okay, well, the use cases are there, right? He could have a headset on. But he'd be much more inclined to use the technology, thinking he was Ethan Hunt, I think is the right person looking for.
Ethan Hunt, yeah.
Using the technology to understand how it would make his life and a job better. Right, as opposed to person X who's 30 years in the chair, right, who really can't be bothered to try something new, but has all the knowledge in his head, right? And connecting the two and making it easy, bingo, right? That's exactly what we want.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point. And I think that younger generation. I think I've touched on this in other episodes. I think the younger generation or the new generation coming through. I think they almost expect. That's especially in certain industries. I think it's massively important. They expect technology, hardware, AR, XR, and that sort of thing. And then a hardware is only as good as its software. Let's be honest. And they expect the software to amplify their efforts in the work environment. And I think it's interesting that using that very simple use case you use, but that use case is quite commonly seen in large organizations, large manufacturing organizations, large oil and gas, energy, utilities organizations. And it's not just one person doing it on a roof. We could be talking about 600 people doing it and having the same issues and running at the same clocked time to go off and do something to come back to you. And if that information is there and if that data is available to them and they've got the right support and the right information, productivity goes through the roof just from increasing automation. So it's a really, really good use case. So we talked a lot about it, and at least we know who the guy in Mission Impossible is now. We've been around the house.
We worked that out.
Yeah, next time we'll just use James Bond. You can't forget James Bond. It's easy. I knew it was Ethan, but I don't know where Hulk came from then. What's the future of SimplyVideo, do you think, as far as the platform's concerned? What new things are coming to amplify the good work you've already done? And how do you see the product evolving to keep up with, which is a fast-paced world technology, as we all know. So what's the future for SimplyVideo?
Yeah, I think I went to a show last year in the USA, right, which is called AWE, Augmented World Expo, which is really, I guess, the centre of the universe for the XR devices manufacturers. And the guy who gave the keynote stood on stage and had a holographic box, with himself being presented. And he was asking questions of his holographic self that was then programmed or integrated with ChatGPT. Yeah. And I guess the light bulb moment for me was AI's everywhere. I must get 20 emails a day, webinars about AI, right? And how do we get there? Yeah. I guess my summary thought process is this information flow, right? Either capture of or getting to. AI combined with certain elements of XR means the end users, if they can get the ability in a hands-free, voice-activated environment and get information pushed back to them either visually or audio or in text or whatever information they want, will drive that. I want a pair of glasses, I want that XR device, and I want to use it because it's making my life easier. And that's where I would see back to mobile phones made all our lives easier. And therefore, if there's technology that will help the advancement of making XR and the devices and everything that can come with it, really usable, then it'll be I want one rather than I won't. And therefore, I think there's a step change in merging of the technologies to give the end user an even better experience of what they're doing, which will drive efficiency, drive everything we've been speaking about.
I think it's interesting, because I think it is, like you said, AI is everywhere at the moment. And I'm a big believer in AI can make a massive difference for people, but it's got to be useful. It's got to be relevant to what you're trying to achieve, more so than coming up with very, very nice email documents that you can do in ChatGPT and the things you see commonly in the marketing worlds and those sorts of things. But having that ability, like that hologram, to ask specific questions, if it has the information, and then it will have the information about I suppose, a machine you may be working on or a device you're working on. So you can almost ask it questions quite quickly. I think that's exciting. But what I think also is exciting on those next evolves is as businesses adapt digital transformation, they can actually build data sets based on their experiences with technology as well. So not only could you ask it from a chat GPT sort of reference, but you could also ask it from a data set point of view going as well. If you had that, we come back to that skills gap and we come back to all those things we've said. If you've got someone with that XR device on and through SimplyVideo, they're able to ask certain questions and get certain information even before having to call, it just increases that efficiency, increases that user experience. And like you said, makes it more and more easier to use. And as they build data, because let's be honest, that's one of the other key things with digital transformation is you've got the ability to evolve and learn every time you're doing a process or whatever it is you're doing. You've also got the ability to, like everything, come back to that kind of lean model again, is you've got the ability to make it more ad hoc to yourself going forward as well as you do more and more of AI. So it's very, very exciting. And I think it'll be interesting to see how organizations adapt to that. And I think one of the other things that's interesting is I still think that puts that's where a lot of organizations get, and I think that's where a lot of softwares will get very soon. I'm sure it won't be too long before that's the kind of products that we're pushing to our customers. I think that the customers that have already adopted, that are adopted already, and are using our products, we have Workflow Plus, SimplyVideo, XR devices, they're going to have such an advantage going into the next 5, 6, 7 years, I feel, because you're going to have these customers that have held back and held back and held back, and then want to jump to that stage, the AI stage, and get into that stage. But you've got these other companies that have already got it in, already got it adopted, already got people using technology, got people used to it. I can see that being a massive advantage for these sorts of organizations in their competitive world over the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, I'll give you two aspects. Again, at that same show, which was June last year, bear in mind we're 2024 now, just to qualify. I took a keynote also by the head of XR for Lenovo. And he really made a point that was telling on me to say, look, for those people who don't start adopting XR now and trying it and playing with it and understanding and trying to work out the use cases, for the businesses that are, when that fundamental shift occurs, they're going to be left behind, right? And therefore they're going to be uncompetitive and so on and so forth. And I had a second point for you there, but it slipped my mind. So back to you on that one, Brad.
Yeah, but I think that is the main point. And I think what those companies, these early adopters, and there are some organizations we know that have integrated our two products together, who use digital workflows in the workplace and then use the SimplyVideo part as a support process, as a remote expert to join various offices, not just individuals in that company, but they actually use it as a customer-facing tool as well, as you know. That's taking leaps and bounds. But what I can see happening is those companies that have got to that stage, and the companies that have adopted digital workflows, they've adopted XR technology, or they use a remote expert to join, teams that are spread across geographical gaps, they'll accelerate their advantage because it will pick pace up. And I think that's one thing I don't know if you're seeing, but I'm seeing when I look at the market. You look at the XR areas, a lot of the bigger organizations have come into it. You're starting to see Epson do devices. We all know about the Google ones. We know Apple and et cetera, have come into that area. But the advances the software is making, the changes people are making and adapting their software to fit large specific use cases, which are not only great use cases for a specific customer, but suit a wider marketplace or industry. And I find that software then accelerates very, very quickly. And I can, like you said, that that the person you heard at the conference is probably spot on. That advantage would accelerate at such a pace. It'll always be harder for those late adopters to ever catch up.
Yeah, and I've remembered what I was going to say after the Lenovo point. Was really, you mentioned something to say, people who are engaging in this technology are already gathering information. Yeah, and specifically, let's say to your product, right, of digitizing workflow, and then all the workflows that take place and all the answers that come into it. The thing about AI, and again, this is the other light bulb moment, it's only ever any good if there's enough data to run it on. Yeah, and therefore to have access, the people who engage in the technology we're talking about now, we're going to start to have those data repositories that when, okay, I guess the deployment of AI becomes specific to their business, they'll have enough information to make it permanent. Yeah, so it's like a chain, right? Unless you start, you're never going to find the right elements to then deploy, and therefore you're going to be further behind. So I'm in total agreement with you, and then it's back to each and every individual in an individual business will have different use cases, but there's different devices at different price points. They've got to find the right software, but they've got to dive in. There's no point being stood on the edge of the pool and not diving in, because otherwise you're not going to learn to swim in what is going to be an increasing digital environment to operate in and drive efficiencies. Otherwise you get left behind. Added to the facts that we were speaking about, if the younger generation are coming in and they've got some of these technologies available to themselves on the phones, or even there's a really cool pair of Ray-Ban Meta glasses, with an AI system early in the US. When they come into a business and it's totally antiquated, you know, they just turn off, right? But there's competitive advantage to a business when you can bring in a load of recruits and say, right, here's the toys you get to play with that they can't afford at home. It has the opposite effect, right? So there's a multitude of different factors, between business related and then individual and person related that, make up this jigsaw. But that's why I'm so excited that we're in this jigsaw, right? Because we're playing with really cool technologies. I bought myself a pair of those Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and they're really good. Yeah, it's just one way. I'm not posting on TikTok with them yet. Yeah, but again, it's again something for you and I. Just take them and put them in front of people, and they don't know it's just a pair of glasses, right? But when I explain what they do and I show them the pictures and the video, now I can post it and stream it, and oh wow, right? And they start to get it. Yeah, so it's that process of education.
And based on the weather in Britain since probably about December the 20th, it'd be a long time before they get any Ray-Bans getting out in the outdoors at the moment. Anyway, because anywhere where like I live, it's been grey, raining, and windy for about 2.5 weeks now. But I bought them with some. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say I brought them with some clear glasses, so I was running around pretending I was Ethan Hunt after I'd watched Mission Impossible. Right?
So. They're dangling from the ceiling now, but be careful. What I was going to say, and I think that to close today off, Alex, you raised a few things there, and I think like one of your last points there was to dive in. Is that the advice you'd give if an organization's listening to this and they want to start their digital transformation journey? They may be looking at XR devices as well and things like that. What advice would you give them to kind of start that journey?
Yeah, I think, look, for me, the price point of the equipment is akin to buying, top of the range mobile phone, right? And so some of them are a bit more expensive. But again, understanding the capabilities of these devices is the starting point. We quite often find a lot of our buyers aren't coming from IT teams. Yeah, and IT can often be a blocker, right? Because they want to adopt a new device and it needs to go on the network and it's supported. And, so fundamentally, but we need those agents for change to put their hand up, to get all the devices, explore the software, and then take it back into the business and sponsor it. Because rather than being a threat, it should always be an addition, right? And that would be my advice. If people are listening to this, they're in the right place. Yeah, hopefully if they've taken some advice from us and I guess our experiences, it's exactly that, right? Have a look around, see what's going to work in your business, do a bit of research online, but then engage and see where you want to start your toe on this journey using XR in digital transformation.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that is it. And again, I don't know, it's like for SimplyVideo, but I know we've worked together on a few things. I'd say 85% of what we work on goes through some sort of proof of concept anyway. So a lot of businesses go through it, they see a need and they can understand it. And that gives them the chance to dip the toe a little bit, where they can then really engage with the products, engage with the softwares, and start to see where that ROI will be. And then, I agree. It's about taking that step. And if someone does want to take that step, how's best to get hold of you, Alex? If someone listens to this and after thinks I want to get hold of you, where's the best place to get hold of you?
If anyone wants to DM me, LinkedIn's a great place to start. Simply Alex.Deighton, SimplyVideo. The website, and there's inquiry forms there that'll come through. Either one of myself or one of the team. I always get visibility of what's going on, so that's great. I was just going to couch what we were saying about XR, right? And there's almost a middle ground as well, which then says you can start deploying some of this software. Yeah, we widen the net, so we support mobiles and tablets, and I know you do the same, right? So you might not have to have the barrier of diving in and buying an XR device, but you want to engage in understanding that process of digital transformation in everything that we've spoken about with your existing tools, if you've got a tighter budget or whatever else. So there's a number of different ways to get engaged. And like I say, for me, SimplyVideo, LinkedIn, DM me, or dive on the website and fill in an inquiry form.
Yeah, and that is, I think it's good. Device agnostic for support of field trial. And again, it does help, like I said, to understand the use cases, because if you've got tablets in an organization already, you'll be able to play with that and then find the right use cases for XR. So you're right. So if anyone's interested or anyone wants to get in touch with Alex, that's the information. And that's it today for episode 5. Yeah, Alex, I've really, really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate that. And like I said, good luck with the 2024. Is this the first one of the year? And we're only on the 4th of January, so good luck with that. And thank you again. And Digital Transformation Bytes will be back again soon.